Mercedes' upcoming F1 transfers just got leaked, so we're going to be going through that and 3 other stories in today's video. So make sure to like this video, and if you want more Mercedes news content like this, make sure to subscribe to the channel by hitting that red button down below. The first story is Hamilton set to be offered $40 million to leave Mercedes in staggering transfer move. Lewis Hamilton could be handed an alternative to spending 2024 and beyond with Mercedes, with the 7-time world champion subject of a reported potential £40 million switch to leave the team. The 7-time world champion is still chasing his 8th world title, but at 38, the next contractual decision could be defining for Hamilton's career. Mercedes' performance looked to be closing up to Red Bull's at the end of the 2022 season, but 2023 has exposed the gulf between the two teams at the moment. The Silver Arrows had a significant upgrade package planned for Imola, which has now been pushed back to the Monaco Grand Prix. The success of these upgrades could play a pivotal role in keeping Hamilton with the team. As reported by MailSport, Ferrari are preparing an offer of £40 million per season to bring Hamilton to Maranello for 2024. According to the report, there is already close contact between the two parties involving Ferrari president John Elkann and the 7-time world champion. Hamilton, though, is still very much considering staying on at Mercedes and has previously insisted he would be happy to remain at the Silver Arrows, where he has won 6 world titles. The report goes on to explain that 2 scenarios would facilitate Hamilton's switch to Mercedes. The first outcome, and reportedly Ferrari's preferred, would be that Carlos Sainz is ousted from the team with Hamilton stepping in to partner Charles Leclerc. Ferrari's alternative driver lineup scenario would see Leclerc head to Mercedes as part of a swap deal for Hamilton, with the British driver partnering Carlos Sainz for the 2024 season. While Mercedes principal Toto Wolff remains optimistic that an extension agreement will be made, F1 expert Lazenby has suggested that Hamilton could decide to seek a new challenge, especially if he fails to compete for the title again this year. The Sky Sports presenter even hinted that he could switch to Ferrari. He told Express Sport, "It's the desire of all drivers to drive for Ferrari." In the past, Lewis has been quoted as saying he would like to drive for Ferrari. If Ferrari moves comfortably ahead of Mercedes, I wouldn't rule it out. Ferrari and Red Bull have dominated F1 for the past year, while Mercedes have struggled to get up to speed. He recently told the BBC, "Last year I told them the issues that are with the car. Like, I've driven so many cars in my life, so I know what a car needs, I know what a car doesn't need. And I think it's really about accountability. It's about owning up and saying, yeah, you know what? We didn't listen to you. It's not where it needs to be, and we've got to work. We've got to look into the balance through the corners, look at all the weak points and just huddle up as a team. That's what we do." The second story is Mercedes fell into a huge trap with F1's new regulations. Mercedes fell into a trap with F1's new aerodynamic regulations, Chief Technical Officer Mike Elliott has admitted. Following years of sustained dominance amid an unprecedented winning run of 8 consecutive Constructors' World Championships, Mercedes endured a torrid campaign when radical new ground effect design regulations were introduced in 2022. Mercedes' competitive struggles have continued into 2023, leading to a mid-season revamp of the W14 after finally abandoning their unique zero-pod approach. Although Mercedes have made progress since switching philosophies, the Silver Arrows are continuing to play catch-up to runaway F1 leaders Red Bull. If you were to go back to the old regulations, you could put the car where you wanted to put it. You had big travel in the suspension, which allowed you to shape the balance a butt better through the corners, Elliott explained. You weren't limited by stiffness. You could chase where the aerodynamic performance was in the regulations. With these cars, aerodynamically, they want to run close to the ground. If you run them close to the ground, you have got to run them stiff. That is one of the traps we fell into last year, if we are honest. There is always going to be that balance you have on this set of regulations. You've got guys that want to run really close to the ground. How do you get that balance right? Elliott said the enforcement of the F1 cost cap, combined with aerodynamic testing restrictions, have made Mercedes' job of getting back to the front even harder. Mercedes now believe they are on the right path to eventually return to winning ways, with Lewis Hamilton claiming a pole position and 3 podiums since the Monaco upgrade was rolled out, underlining their gains. If you look at the aero testing restrictions, you have got so limited number of runs that you've got to pick a direction and go for it, Elliott said. It's really hard to, if you go down the route of saying, I want to develop a car for higher ride heights, one for low ride heights, and I want to cover all my bases, suddenly you'd be doing 3 runs a week on each one and going nowhere. So you have got to pick a direction and go in it, and as you learn, you can tweak that direction and move it slightly. I'd like to think we've sort of got ourselves into the right place. George Russell, dazzled in his rookie season with Mercedes, has faced a challenging sophomore year that has brought up some questions about Mercedes relying on the Brit for their future. Despite the current setbacks, a senior engineer from Mercedes holds steadfast to one conviction that Russell is destined to be a Formula One champion. In his debut season, Russell emerged as a force to be reckoned with. He outscored the seven-time champion, his teammate Lewis Hamilton, leaving a strong impression on the racing world. However, the 2023 season has been a different story. With only one podium finish and a notable performance gap compared to Hamilton, Russell's journey has hit a rough patch. Despite the lost form, Andrew Shovlin, the trackside engineering director at Mercedes, offers an emphatic vote of confidence. He's a hugely professional driver who's working very, very hard, Mirror quotes Shovlin. And he's one of those that you'd say no doubt he'll win a championship at some point, providing we can give him a car that's fit for that job. Russell's rise to prominence has been nothing short of remarkable. Promoted from Williams to Mercedes, he clinched a memorable victory in Brazil during a tumultuous 2022 season. However, 2023 has brought challenges, with Russell currently trailing in the standings compared to his teammate. Russell's 2022 consistency, 17 out of 22 top 5 finishes, contrasts with 2023's mere 4 out of 12. The third story is Lewis Hamilton proud of Mercedes' progress despite gap to F1 leaders Red Bull. Lewis Hamilton has defended Mercedes' progress during the 2023 F1 season despite the team's significant deficit to Red Bull. Mercedes rolled out a radical upgrade featuring a revamped side pod design at the Monaco Grand Prix, and have been continuing to bring several updates to their W14 car across the following races. Hamilton has claimed a pole position and 3 podium finishes since the Monaco upgrade and insists Mercedes have progressed a lot this year, even if the gap to Red Bull has remained large. I've been incredibly proud of everybody. Everyone has been working insanely hard, the 7-time world champion said. We've been making big steps. I think the biggest step we took was when we got to Monaco, and the car has really progressed a lot since then. We have a better understanding of where to position the car. It's been a lot more consistent. Podiums, top 5 finishes, which has been great. And generally, we've been getting solid, great reliability. So there's lots and lots of good bits. While Red Bull have won all 12 races in 2023, the battle for second place in the Constructors' Championship has been intense, with the likes of Aston Martin, Mercedes, Ferrari, and McLaren all taking turns in being the second fastest team at various stages. Hamilton anticipates the battle to remain tight heading into the second half of the season, which resumes with the Dutch Grand Prix at the end of this month. I don't know how much developing people will be doing in the second part of the season, but I think there will be movement, the Briton added. I don't know what happened to Aston and how they've taken a step back, but I'm sure McLaren was really strong in the second phase. Ferrari were very close, so dependent on track. I'm sure there'll be some movement in the positions. I hope that we can be a little better. Mercedes technical director James Allison admitted that when the team snubbed a performance gains approach to the F1 2023 rule changes to combat porpoising, they went too far the other way with the W14. As Formula One unveiled a new generation of challengers relying on ground effect aerodynamics for the 2022 campaign, an initial problem to arise for several teams was the bouncing phenomenon known as porpoising. Mercedes were the team arguably most troubled by its impacts, the team starting the season off the pace and required to understand the problem before they could start chasing outright performance. That season's Azerbaijan GP was a key turning point in the porpoising debate. With the visit to the Baku City circuit, a rough ride more widely across the grid, Mercedes' Lewis Hamilton meanwhile seemingly struggling with back pain, such was the severity. The FIA would subsequently impose changes for F1 2023, including raising the floor edges and diffuser throat height, in order to combat porpoising. And speaking alongside Mercedes' Chief Technical Officer Mike Elliott in a mid-season Q&A, Allison said these changes gave Mercedes the choice to either go on the attack and pursue performance, or err on the side of caution to avoid the specter of their past returning to haunt them again. They went for the latter, but were too cautious. The team once more finding themselves out of title contention in F1 2023, and instead battling Aston Martin, McLaren, and Ferrari to be recognized a distant best of the rest behind runaway leaders Red Bull. Although we made great strides last year, 2023 presented all the teams with a rule change that offered some protection against bouncing, said Allison. Over the winter, we faced a choice. Go aggressive and trade the bouncing protection in the rule change for performance, or take a more cautions route and steer clear of the sort of porpoising that wrecked our season last year. We chose the cautious path, knowing that it would be less painful to correct if we were wrong. The story of our year so far has been mostly about finding out that we had been too cautious and making the changes to correct that. After coming into the F1 2023 campaign set on returning to the title picture, Allison admitted it took some getting used to as they saw the gulf in pace to Red Bull,